Hey, Pete, have you ever been fascinated by the allure of secret societies throughout history?
Are you kidding me right now, Andy? I live for this stuff. From the Freemasons to the Illuminati, I am obsessed with these clandestine groups. The Rosicrucians and their ancient wisdom, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale with its powerful alumni network. I'm drawn to them. There's something about how they offer this exclusive access to hidden knowledge. They totally capture my imagination. It's like they give this sense of belonging to something greater than oneself.
Wow, sounds like you're looking for one yourself.
Do you even need to ask? Where do I sign? How much blood do I have to give? Are there any required tattoos or brands involved? Is it my first or second born that they need?
Well, what if I told you that there's a secret society for film lovers right here at the Next Reel family of film podcasts, all proud members of the True Story FM network, and you don't have to give any blood or either of your kids?
You've got my attention, Andy. What can you tell me about this cinematic brotherhood?
When you become a member of the Next Reel family, you gain access to a treasure trove of exclusive content, early episode releases, and a community of passionate film enthusiasts who share your love for movies. It's like being initiated into a secret order where you're privy to the inner workings of our shows, including the Next Reel, the Film Board, Movies We Like, Sitting in the Dark, and CinemaScope.
But Andy, as a member, will I unlock a world of bonus content from extended conversations and behind-the-scenes insights to exclusive pre-show and post-show discussions that expand the conversations about the films we love?
Why, yes, the true power of this secret society lies in its community. As a member, you'll join an exclusive group within our Discord community where you can engage in clandestine conversations with other passionate film fans in our members-only channels.
But what about live recordings, Andy? The sacred rituals of any good cinematic order. Will these episodes be scheduled in advance so that members like me will know when to gather around the virtual pyre in real time via YouTube?
Ah, yes. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is that by becoming a member, you're not just investing in your own entertainment, you're also supporting the tireless work of our independent creators and helping to keep the magic of cinema alive and well. So if you're ready to join this elite group of film lovers and unlock the secrets of cinema, head over to truestory.fm/join. For just $5 a month or $55 a year, you will gain access to a world of exclusive content, engaging discussions, and a community that shares your passion for movies. Head to truestory.fm/join to sign up.
Andy, I can't wait for you to welcome me into the inner circle of the Next Reel family of film podcasts. I'll see you in the secret chambers. Now, when do I get my ring?
Well, we don't actually offer rings with your membership.
Tattoos or brands? When can I do that?
No tattoos.
Secret handshakes?
Tell you what, you and I can come up with our own secret handshake, okay?
No, I mean, at the very least.
Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Do you ever get to the end of a movie where the hero had to make a difficult choice, and all you want to do is talk to people about whether they made the right one?
Watch an episode of Star Trek and spend the next few days thinking about the rights of synthetic beings like Data and the Doctor. I became a co-host of the Superhero Ethics podcast because I love those questions, and the people at Wendy's are tired of hearing me talk about them.
We're not a review podcast. We're more interested in questions the characters face and how different works approach similar questions. Sometimes we'll even go behind the camera, talking about how on-screen media gets made and how that affects what questions get asked, which ones don't, and who gets to ask them.
We hit a wide range of media: movies, TV shows, books, and video games.
You can find us under Superhero Ethics wherever you listen to podcasts or go to theethicalpanda.com. But you can also do far more. We love listener feedback and we'll happily talk about your questions or comments on air, and members get special bonus content.
Hashtag not sponsored by Wendy's.
Hey, psst. Hey, you see that Snickers over there? If no one's looking, you should just take it.
No! Don't listen to him, my son. That would be stealing, and stealing is a sin.
Sin Schmin, it's a friggin' Snickers bar. You deserve to have it. Sinning really satisfies you.
Repent, my child. Virtue is the only real snack worth savoring. For that candy bar is merely a gateway to nougat damnation. Has this ever happened to you?
Listening to the devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, and you're not sure what to think?
Then we're here to help. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III, and this season on All the Feelings, we're examining the 7 deadly sins.
You know, the fun ones.
And the 7 heavenly virtues.
Which are also a thing. Through personal stories, historical oddities, and way too much embarrassment, we take you on a thrilling journey through all the goods and the bads you hear about in church.
But without all that pesky church stuff. So come join us for All the Feelings Season 9, a sometimes funny podcast about being human. All the sins, all the virtues.
All in one place. Go to allthefeelings.fun to learn more, or subscribe to All the Feelings wherever you get your podcasts.
Game over.
Horror has always attracted the outcast, the loner, the bullied, the goth. And while straight audiences weren't always aware of their existence in the darkened theater besides them, LGBT plus audiences had a special place in their hearts for horror's worlds of gods and monsters. Sharing a cinema experience with mainstream audiences has long provided society's least appreciated and most misunderstood a double-paned existence, where outsiders can sit and enjoy, quote, normal people's anxiety of the other on screen, while simultaneously seeing a totally different movie, one that says, we know you're there, and we see you. Sometimes that look out from the screen as queer audiences included secret codes, nods, whispers, and inside jokes. And often when there were no inside jokes at all, queer audiences brought them anyways. After all, horror allows us to safely examine the fears that are common to our humanity. But for queer audiences, they're often unique ones too. Fear of being different, fear of being discovered, fear of being trapped in a body not your own. So let's look at those while we put the demon in Pride Month here on Sitting in the Dark. My name is Kynan Dias, and I am joined, as always, with my allies here. Hello, allies. We have Tommy Metz III. Hello, Tommy.
Hello. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We have, Kyle Olson. I was reading his.
I'm using a different name.
I was reading his little StreamYard name here. It says Boost Flywell. Great. Yeah. Hello, Boost Flywell.
Well, all my friends know the low rider.
And of course, as always, Mr. Pete Wright. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation, as always.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to know, how aware were you of the idea of coded queer cinema? The idea that, yes, some movies were made by queer filmmakers back when they weren't allowed to put queer stories on the screen. And also how, because they weren't represented, a lot of queer audiences had to find themselves sometimes in places where the original filmmakers said, no, there are no queer people in my movie. You're just making this up. And queer people said, I don't care about that anyways.
I'll say I was aware of coded cinema, coded queer cinema. And I will also say, I am such a rube when it comes to understanding it. There's so many things. And then the movies we watched this week, my first response is, way to go, Kynan. I see so much gay here.
There's so much
gay.
and with some movies that you have seen many times.
Many times. Yes, absolutely.
And how about for the rest of you?
In college, I became a really big fan of the documentary, The Celluloid Closet.
Yes.
And that really opened up a lot of the ways that I was watching horror cinema for what is society going through? What is this going on? That it unleashed another level of what are horror movies talking about in a way that I didn't realize at the time, which I was very excited by. I really like that documentary.
It's a great documentary. The book originally by Vito Russo is really great.
Too. Yeah,
but
that's right.
It's out of print because he died, during the AIDS epidemic, and no one has sort of picked up that mantle. But yeah, for a lot of people, that's your first entry into being like, oh wow, there's a whole other experience of watching movies that I'm not aware of. Myself included, when I saw that documentary and then read the book. Yeah,
because it got me really interested in the Hays Code, this whole level of self-governing that Hollywood and the government has done at different times, which was really interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Kyle, any prior experience with this stuff?
Not as much. I grew up in the Midwest. This stuff was kept from us as much as it was possible to. So it's when getting into college and studying film class and stuff and then looking back and going, Oh, so I feel like
Yeah.
like for the last 20 some odd years, it's been going. Oh, like I feel like I'm always late to the party. I'm always the one going. Oh, that's what that meant.
That's
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
okay.
Sometimes they wanted you to be in the dark and to not
Right.
know. Right. So yeah, as Tommy was talking about, this is partially coming from the Hays Code, the production code, which was Hollywood's self-censorship arm. That is, all the studios colluded together and said, rather than having the federal government come in and tell us you're not supposed to do this, you have to make movies that are pro-government, you have to start your movies with the national anthem, like in other countries where that actually exists. The studio system got together and actually said, like, hey, let's censor ourselves. Can we just agree that there will be no swearing, that there will be no nudity, and there won't be what the Hays Code called sexual deviance. So even though it was never called out specifically, sexual deviance was taken to include any mention of gay people whatsoever. So you see a pretty sharp divide starting in July 1st, 1934. The movies that are in the pre-code era had gay characters that anybody here, would recognize as gay. And then afterwards, they had to become coded, which usually meant that they were shown as being, in Vito Russo's words, sissified for gay men. That we were dealing with basically stereotypes. And then for women, it was often like butcher people. So you often have slim, prissy guys, as we have in Bride of Frankenstein, and then maybe sort of more masculine women. And my students today at UNLV Film, they're often, like, oh, these are, how could we be celebrating these as like queer cinema? These are stereotypes, right? These are really outdated ideas. But that was the only way for people to know and recognize each other in the dark, was to go like, okay, well, there's not room for movies that are, well-rounded gay characters, right? Oh, he runs a motorcycle shop and he's a Christian or something and he's gay. Like no, they have to have completely their stereotypes and wear those on their sleeves, right? So that's where we'll start off in our coded queer classical era with Bride of Frankenstein. And then we will go into the 80s during our lifetimes when this was still happening in an entirely different way in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. And then we'll see a relatively recent queer-coded horror film, which is called Titane. So, great. Ready to jump in on these three films, or any other thoughts about the general idea of coded queer cinema?
It seemed like one of the things that if I'm remembering correctly from Celluloid Closet, or maybe I'm conflating it with other things, but there would be comments on characters like boys will be boys,
Yeah.
Right.
and then women would start wearing tuxedos.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
And that was sort of the way, that was like the emblem of got it. We're
Got
still
it.
talking the same language, but we're really not saying anything out loud.
Right. And it's not like gay people disappeared in July 1st, 1934 from all of society, right? And obviously a lot of people who work in Broadway and Hollywood either are queer or knew their world is populated by queer people. So they wanted to put them in their movies, right, to express their actual experiences. So sometimes they had to do it in just a sly way. And that became part of the fun, right? That became part of the fun as people would watch and go, these people are with it. They're hip. I'm hip. We're seeing each other through the screen.
Can you remind me why, what led to the Hays Code? I know that it was self-governance in the same way that explicit lyrics on rap albums were self-governing. What was something getting out of control? Was there a new conservative movement? I don't remember this part.
Well, there were actually a series of cultural movements, of conservative culture movements. The culture wars sort of would come and go. And then Hollywood would have these scandals, not very frequently about queer people, but the scandals that are most famous, like Fatty Arbuckle's supposed,
Hollywood
murder.
Babylon.
Hollywood Babylon stuff, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
The idea of,
Finger.
now that you mentioned Hollywood Babylon, I'm trying not to quote the dirtiest ones of them, but the idea that Clara Bow would support the USC football team by giving all of the players at once special pep sessions, things like that. She was a booster of the USC, right? And none of these things were. That one wasn't true, but there were some real life scandals of people dying, having drug overdoses or being murdered or that kind of thing, and that would happen again and again, and it eventually caused really big boycott, specifically by the Catholic League of Decency. Yeah, where in the old days you would have, in addition to like your priest who would like read like, oh, let's all pray for a brother Kyle, his mother is sick or what have you, right? Or let's pray for this person. They would say, here are the movies that are coming out this week on a grade of A, B, or C, and there are movies that you are not allowed as Catholics to see, and they would read that from the pulpit, like part of the like part of yeah. So that became a really big deal. So Hollywood started to clench up a little bit with their content.
Does that mean that there was a papal division that would like monitor the trades? And
like, it sounds silly, but yeah, there were.
Wow, there was like one priest who was like assigned to Hollywood.
Yeah, now they're steering everyone to Jim Caviezel movies. It's still happening.
Exactly. But, so
it's also what makes pre-code so great, though, right? Where you actually see gangsters shot and killed, and good guys losing and dying, and you know,
Marlene Dietrich kissing a woman on the lips for real.
Totally. Yeah. Mae West, Barbara Stanwyck, all of these over-sexualized, like hyper-sexualized characters. Like that era right before 1935 was great. 31 to 35, awesome. Everything after that
those are the good Marx Brothers movies versus the okay Marx Brothers movies. Like there is a real clear like delineation.
There is a Marx Brothers scale of satisfaction in the world.
Yeah, to scale from Zeppo to Groucho. All right. So why don't we start at the beginning here chronologically? I think is the right way to do this. So we're looking at James Whale's Bride of Frankenstein, which of course is a sequel to Frankenstein, and we have in a earlier edition of Sitting in the Dark covered Bride of Frankenstein before I was on the show. But hopefully this is a whole new way of looking at this. So our sequel picks up directly after the events of the original, but adds into it a kind of an introductory section where we have Elsa Lanchester as Mary Shelley, who is being praised by her husband and also their friend Lord Byron in what looks to me today like a throuple situation where they are talking to her and praising her for her story of Frankenstein, and she says, oh, there's so much more to it than that, and picking up on it, and it goes in some wacky directions, let's say, some funny, campy directions, while also adapting some moments from the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that weren't in the original James Whale film, but then adding to it what a lot of people have said are this camp gay sensibility. They'll never say the word gay. They'll never say the word queer. But a lot of people, potentially because James Whale himself was an out gay man in Hollywood, since his death have been reading it more and more as a queer film. And not just with the monster himself, but with a very, very different portrayal of Dr. Frankenstein, played by the same actor, Colin Clive, and now in an entirely different character in many ways. So before we get into it, do we have any axes to grind about Bride of Frankenstein?
I saw this the last time I think I saw this was in college. I really didn't remember I didn't remember the previously on Frankenstein. Like this whole clip show that they do. And then Dr. Pretorius's jars filled with people is insane. I completely didn't remember that. And then how wacky the who is she?
Una O'Connor, I'm guessing you're talking about as Minnie, the housemaid.
Yes, Minnie,
who was
correct.
Not in the original.
Cloris Leachman.
Like at one point, I'm pretty sure she goes, yuck, yuck, yuck. Wow. I didn't remember. Yeah, I did not remember it being so broad at times. So that's not really axes to grind. It was just sort of like, huh? I don't remember this at all. And this is considered such an enormous classic, and it rightfully so, but it's really weird in tone.
Really weird, yeah.
At times, yeah. It's all over the place.
It's not also really about the Bride of Frankenstein.
No,
right?
That's
your axe. Yeah, that would be my axe. The fact that
Yeah.
she only shows up at the end, and the fact that last like 5 minutes gets so much play in tributes
Yes.
for Hollywood, right? Like
Yes.
those shots are legend, and the rest of the movie is largely forgotten. And
Great point.
I think that's really, really interesting to me. I think of the four of us, I think I was the only one who was on that last.
No, I was there.
Oh, you were there for that one?
Yeah, I was there for that one,
Okay. Tom wasn't. for that one, we watched so many Frankenstein movies all in a row. It was actually sort of nice to watch just the one. Pretty tight. The fact that there was so much story between the doctors and the little jar people, and then the other side where we meet frankly the Gene Hackman knockoff, I thought was really fun.
Yeah, they nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my issue. It's bad title. Like, I think it was when doing my research, I believe it was The Return of Frankenstein while they were shooting it, and then it became The Bride of Frankenstein. But I was also trying to figure out, has there ever been a title character who's on screen less?
I wonder.
That might be true. Yeah.
Godot.
Yeah, because it's so weird that, like, she has literally, I don't think she ever shows up in anything else. I mean, like, there's been retellings of, like, there's The Bride, and but I don't think, like, this character, I mean, because Frankenstein obviously continues on. He's supposed to be the same. I mean, the Frankenstein's monster is supposed to be the same one, but she never goes anywhere. And yet, right now, you could go to Orlando, Florida, and she's walking around taking pictures with people.
Oh, that's interesting.
I find that fascinating. That just those 5 minutes have become part of the cinematic tapestry of all the Universal monsters.
I agree with you. She's great. Elsa Lanchester is one of my favorite actors. And she's usually more like the Mary Shelley that you see at the beginning, not as much of the monster in her other parts. So she's normally this comic character, or she's one of the nannies in Mary Poppins, things like that. But yeah, what she does there, she talks about getting that voice, that screech, and like practicing the howls of geese, doing these terrible like all this work that goes into it, and this gigantic hairpiece, just for this really brief character. Like, it's not really surprising to me that has become so iconic, right? But yeah, I would have liked to have gotten a whole movie with Elsa Lanchester as the bride. She deserves more justice for the bride. That's our hashtag.
Start a hashtag.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm totally obsessed with characters who have less title characters who have less screen time. Blair Witch, never shown.
Okay.
Okay. Tom was right. Godot, that's on the list.
Godot, I thought it was Godot, but I don't know. Did they make a movie of Godot? I think it was, right?
And the 1933 Invisible Man. You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody.
Right. That's by James Whale as well, of course. So yes. Good, Pete. Good. Yeah. But yeah, it's just a very different experience. And it's funny, on your episode where you're talking about those Frankenstein movies, right? Like, there's no talk about it being coded queer cinema. It takes really like someone to tell you, right? And then once somebody tells you, like, this is a camp classic, this is potentially James Whale like being pissed off at Universal that he had to do the sequel. He says that he didn't want to do a sequel, and that they basically made him, and his decision was just to like do a hoot of a time. Let's just throw everything to the wall and just see what happens. And yeah, it comes up with this, what many people say is this masterpiece, but an entirely different film from the original, which is very, very serious. This one is flat out comedy, but also potentially getting some people's favorite like emotional moments from the series where you actually kind of care about the monster in some way, right? Yeah, and then retaining a lot of the original cast, obviously Karloff, but then Colin Clive, who what James Whale said, that Colin Clive couldn't be replaced. Colin Clive was very ill. He had really terrible alcoholism, and the studio wanted to replace him. But he was like, no, Colin Clive has the, in his words, hysterical nature that you need to play Dr. Frankenstein. And that there was something about Clive that just at that point in his life, you just compare those two performances from 1931 and 35. Like, this one seems just much more comfortable with himself in many ways, like much more like willing to take risks. Yeah.
It's so interesting that his character, because I think I seeing this with these eyes, I look at Dr. Pretorius and I think, oh, okay, he's the campy figure,
right?
Like, he's the over the top figure. But you know what? Like, his encouragement to Frankenstein to defy moral norms, to create life, right? Like,
defy God and create life.
Yes, defy God and create life. And that's so interesting, the way Frankenstein this time plays the struggle that seems so much more overtly related to him, like not being a doctor, but really questioning, why did I marry that woman?
Yeah.
In a way I've
And
just never seen. I've never known. I feel like I like I said, I'm a complete rube. It's like you pull back the veil. It's amazing.
right, but he gets the happy ending at the end of the original Frankenstein. Then we pick up on him on his wedding night. Right, it's his wedding night, and he's in this the bedroom. Will frames it in this just gigantic bed, and he and Elizabeth are going to consummate their marriage. And luckily for him, Dr. Pretorius comes in through the side entrance, right? And it's this crazy back and forth, even with staging. I mean, there's questions about how much is Will like doing this purposefully, but like when you're reading it within the queer context of like Frankenstein trying to get back into the bed and getting Elizabeth back into her, and all this staging that's like when Pretorius is winning, it's dragging him away from the marriage bed, and when he's losing, it's putting him back in the marriage bed. And even though Whale was out, like we don't have his notes about like how much he was intending this to be gay. He would argue that it wasn't intended to be gay, but it's hard not to see it that way, I think, once you've been initiated.
There's also kind of a Greek love thing between older, younger. Pretorius, Dr. Frankenstein, the Hermit, and Frankenstein's monster. Like there's a lot of that continued come on in out of the rain and let's sort of teach you things and teach you how to sin a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the monster being taken in by the older man, and them I don't think they would have been thinking about this when they were making it or anytime during Whale's lifetime. But when you look at it today, like they basically have a Buttigieg marriage. I mean, they basically have this like really like, except for the fact that they're both men and one of them is undead.
Those seem like pretty big qualifications.
Yeah, But like he and the Hermit just live together and they pray and they have their music and they're totally fine. Except outsiders come in and go, "Hey, you shouldn't be living like this, and get out of here," and chase them out. And it's really interesting, and that's one of the joys of queer coded cinema, where it's not like explicit, is that these things also evolve, right? It means something different in Whale's lifetime than it does to my students as we watch it in queer cinema class.
But moral panic never changes.
Right.
Moral panic, pitchforks. I mean, we don't have pitchforks anymore, but we have
well,
Facebook.
We've tiki torches.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly right. Yeah.
The monsters like longing. That's one of the things you get in this movie. Not only the fact that they actually advance the monster intellectually closer to the experience of the book, where he can speak a little bit. His longing for companionship as sort of the metaphor for queer isolation in this space is really is interesting to me, and I would love some commentary from you being smarter than me on this stuff. The rejection of the bride.
Yeah.
What is that signal saying? Is that queerness denied? Is it just unrequited love in this space? You'll never find happiness. You're not allowed to find happiness.
I think all of those things, Pete. I think all of those are fair game, because I mean, like it is like, yeah, this longing that he has for this thing that I don't know, the way that I tend to read it is him, thinking about a bride, or it being given the idea of a bride and like a marriage, heterosexual relationship, and then once they're actually there, him rejecting that. So it can be exactly what you're talking about, but I've always read it myself as like, okay, this is what society, which I guess in this case is Dr. Pretorius and my parents, like telling me like to marry this bride, and we're going to get you this bride. But what he really wants is a friend, which is the word that he uses for the blind hermit. And then if you've ever seen the movie Gods and Monsters, where Ian McKellen plays James Whales, that's the word they use as code for "I love you." Essentially, is calling each other friend. Like, are we friends, right? And then when you can't have that, that is one of the undercurrents of a lot of coded queer movies of the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s, not just horror ones, but the end of it is often suicide. So my students are often really bummed out by that when we're looking at just about any movie from before that, even if they are like this, like the monster and Pretorius and Frankenstein are in many ways like heroes, because they just go out and live, but at the end we have this ending that is tragic and suicidal, and the monster gets more articulate, and the last thing he says is, "We belong dead." That's pretty bleak.
Well, and let's remember, the monster started this movie picking up old people and throwing them in a pit.
True.
Yeah.
Well, that was just a flash forward to Midsommar.
The crashing rock, the smashing rock.
It also is, it's not the only negation of female against male. If you remember the jar people, the queen is constantly trying to get away from the king.
Right.
And so it's almost kind of like, just because you are seemingly made for each other or engineered for each other doesn't mean it's going to end up. That's not how human nature works. You can say that woman is made for man, says the Bible. You can say that men and women are meant to be together. You can say that people are engineered and created for each other. It doesn't have to follow through that way.
Oh man, that's like the best point.
Want to have like the heart needs what the heart wants, and so her just being like, "No, do you know what you look like?"
Right.
Like, get out of here, you weirdo creep. Yeah.
That is such a great point. I didn't even catch that. I didn't even catch it. It's like right there on the screen.
And also, every time that the bride has shown up again in other versions of it, the story has always been, oh, now Dr. Frankenstein wants her. Like it's like, from the bride with Sting and stuff, to even up to Creature Commandos on James Gunn, like a current animated thing. It's still like, and here's your bride, and she goes, and then it's like, oh, Dr. Frankenstein, hello. I mean, it becomes this weird thing of like, you were made for him, but yeah, well, I did make you, so then you get into some other weird things.
Yeah.
Like, who would you make it for? And but it's interesting to see like that becomes the story then.
Except, of course, in Hotel Transylvania, where the bride is played by Fran Drescher.
And they seemingly are happy together.
They're very happy together.
It's weird. We've never talked about that movie on this show.
Wait till next month.
Well, before we move on from Bride of Frankenstein, I just want to point out, beyond like, say, what happens, so beyond like the characters and like the characters being coded queer characters, I think Bride of Frankenstein is incredibly influential with its sensibilities, right? With just the way it looks and the way it feels. And it has this kind of like macabre imagery to it. Say Dr. Pretorius, who is this little mincing queer stereotype, but he also, for instance, hangs out in cemeteries and eats his lunch there and just like is totally chill with that, which I think is a pretty direct line from, say, some of the like the pre-film ideas of like just goth imagery to, say, like Tim Burton-esque, just living within that, and like the Addams Family and being all of that. So I think it's an instance of like queer culture and queer sensibilities eventually winning and becoming mainstream in a way that like we can't really we have trouble seeing, because it's become part of the that's what cool nerds do now, is they kind of act like Dr. Pretorius in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Interesting.
This may lead to absolutely nothing, but it's something that struck me while watching this movie. That I read a piece once that was trying to connect mid-Atlantic accent with the Hays Code and general repression of sexual identity and the modern gay voice, the gay accent.
That's very interesting.
Have you ever read anything like that?
No.
No, I'd love to see that.
No,
I think it's just a fascinating idea that because there's so much sort of coded repression, that maybe that mid-Atlantic adaptation has something to do with over a generation, defining one of the non-coded characteristics of a stereotype that is held.
That's super interesting. Yeah, because of course, like, gay men of a certain generation, I think basically anyone who's my age or older, I don't think my students do this. I don't think they do Joan Crawford and Betty Davis impressions of each other. Right. But like, for me, who was sort of at the end of the coded gay era, right? Like that was a lot of what we would, do impressions of, or like, that's often like we put on characters. We're doing like, really, that sort of thing. Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to my speech path community. Let's see what we can dig up.
In that world.
Yeah, because I mean, another movie I could have put on here would be Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which of course is like explicitly a movie about sisters, but in a lot of ways is about an old married gay couple, right, who just hate each other and have hated each other forever and all of that. But maybe we'll do that some other time.
All of it is itself around this like constructed performance, right? Like especially that movie, like there's so much constructed. It's like that high stylized sort of coded language between sisters and of cinema, and it's really interesting.
All right, so now we are moving to basically the end of the coded queer era. There obviously still are coded queer characters, but this is a movie that a lot of people who were making it, we're still in the closet, not out necessarily, and we're from the end of that era, and during the AIDS epidemic, and this is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Freddy's Revenge from 1985, directed by Jack Shoulder. And it was the one that Tommy guessed when I introduced the idea of what movies we were going to do. Tommy was like, I bet it's going to be Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
I don't remember doing that. That's
oh, yes. Which has been called the gayest movie of all time. But Jack Shoulder, the director, claims that he was completely clueless to any of this and puts the onus on it to the writer, David Chaskin. And says, like, whatever David put in there, that's why it's as gay as it is. David Chaskin, for his part, kind of controversially, has said that he did not write a gay movie and that it was the casting of lead actor Mark Patton as our character, Jesse Walsh, like, just the fact that was the only way that Mark Patton could do it, the character, was as a gay person, and that has had some accusations, of some homophobia and saying, like, I wrote a straight movie and you gayed it up and that kind of thing. And this is also a gay hot potato, exactly. Not my fault. Yeah. And a lot of that is covered in a really interesting documentary called Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street from 2019. That. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's the actor,
that's
right?
about
that's about the
Mark
actor's
Patton.
journey. Okay.
Yeah, that's about Mark Patton and what he was going through at the time, and his beef he has with the screenwriter of Nightmare on Elm Street 2 for saying that it's basically his fault that Freddy's Revenge did so poorly and then was called gay as a gay movie. But so this picks up 5 years after Freddy Krueger has been defeated. The Walsh family moves into Nancy Thompson's former house, which I wouldn't recommend doing. And their teenage son, cheap. It's probably real cheap.
It's the same real estate from Sinister.
Yeah.
There's this whole business just renting out dead people's houses.
Right. You move
there actually is a horror movie about that exact thing. But
about Sinister,
yeah.
Well, you can see the parents, the Walsh parents, Clu Gulager and Hope Lang, like, they're like, it's so cheap, Jesse, just go back to bed. It doesn't matter. But anyways, Jesse is dealing with, regular high school stuff. He doesn't have any friends. He's being bullied at school. His PE teacher is picking on him. He can't connect with girls, and his parents just don't understand. And then to top it all off, Freddy Krueger's glove lives in his boiler and seems to be trying to attack him, this time from the inside out. Before we get into it, any access to grind on Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2?
Only the movie. No, my only axe to grind is, like, I like rules and I like mythology, and this movie just destroys all of it. It's like he doesn't need dreams to have power. Their dreams are just completely forgotten. I mean, I don't know, like, I think it should be called Damp Sheets, the movie. But that being said, I'm kind of glad it exists. I was thrown by the first, like, 20 minutes. I was like, Jesse's a boy.
Right.
Yeah.
We never get a boy as the main person.
Yeah,
and I was like, let's lean in. Unfortunately, I leaned in too much.
Or not enough, depending on which fanboard you're reading.
Close. No, I'm not saying that anything. It's just because when you lean in, you pay more attention to the rules that are constantly being broken. Why is Freddy exploding birds? It's just a mess. The movie is a fascinating mess. I'm glad it exists, and I'm really glad you put it on the list, because I had forgotten how weird it is. And my new axe to ground is that idea of the guy saying that he didn't write any gayness into the movie and someone else gayed it up. Apart from the S&M bar, apart from he's inside me, and he wants to take me again. Like these are like Freddy stroking Jesse's lips, saying you've got the body, and then of course how every young girl talks about their boyfriend that they see across across the street. His body is slim and smooth. The two things every heterosexual woman gravitates toward.
Like a salmon.
Ridiculous that he would say that there wasn't gayness and his body is slim and smooth. It should have been called Freddy's twink. Let's go.
Yeah, David Chaskin has taken some of that back in a 2010 documentary about the whole franchise. Says that that there was meant to be subtext and that he didn't want to admit it, I think, because the movie didn't do very well. But then still Mark Patton, the actor, was like, but then you're still putting it on me. And that's what the 2019 documentary is about, is Mark Patton wanting to track down David Chaskin. But yeah, the director, though, Jack Shoulder, who I know a little bit because he was a professor. So I've met him a couple. He wouldn't know me. I've met him a couple of times. I do, for whatever reason, believe him when he says they told me afterwards that we were at a gay bar shooting this and that these were from fetish shops, and I didn't know that. I didn't know Mark was gay, and I didn't know any of this.
Oh dear! Just stagger in and say action. Yeah. Where am I? What are we doing? I don't know. This seems to be the least Nightmare on Elm Street of all the Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, like, because I've seen them all, and then watching this, I had forgotten how much I had forgotten, because I was watching it going, I don't remember any of this, because I don't think I've ever gone back and watched this again after the first time that I saw it. So.
Yeah, maybe because it's so different, and maybe because the rules, right? Because as the series goes on, it becomes more about the rules, and like if there's a change to the rules,
this really could have been
rules.
This could have been anybody. Like it could have been any. You could have swap out another, dead guy, and it would be roughly the same.
And especially when he comes back for the third one and opens the rules to involve dream powers, it's like That being said, I would have been fine watching Jesse make out with Grady. they had some chemistry.
They have chemistry. Yeah, they have the chemistry. And I think looking at poor who's it, Lisa, who you could tell, like, I wonder actually if Lisa knew that she was in a gay movie, trying to, like, or if she was just like, do you realize you're being cast as the beard? Like, I don't understand. And, but I actually remember many sequences from this movie. I don't know if it was just when it came out or what, but the pool party scene and the especially, the pool house scene with the tongue, what I'm talking about. It's a weirdly, like, very short, only barely titillating scene from a heterosexual perspective. And then you realize, oh, this movie is that. I get it now. That's why it's all the good stuff is so short. Because it wasn't for me to like. That wasn't the point. And I actually really, I think it's a glorious mess. But there are things in it that I think are really interesting. And I think that, like, is it that Freddy in this movie ostensibly, like in the coded queer part, the personification of repression and shame? Is that what we're getting out of this?
I think so, right? Like he's coming from inside the boy, right? So he's like,
the call's coming from inside the boy.
But
the boy is coming from inside the burnt shell of Freddy at the end.
Exactly.
Like, he emerges from this cocoon, a new and much more confident pastel wearing stereotype.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
But this and Titane both share birthing, male or non-traditional birthing sequences.
Yeah, exactly.
Non-traditional. That's good.
Non-traditional, which can be directly tied to queer thoughts, anti-queer things, all of that. The denial of what our purpose is here from God. Say.
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of attack at the status quo of like expected norms. I mean, that's the kind of thing that queer filmmakers and queer audiences really tend to, find in these things about like, hey, mom and dad aren't always right. Great. Or the kids have to be the parents, or or any kind of reversal of those things is really exciting, I think, for queer people.
The thing that I think twists my brain a little bit is that for most of the movie, Freddy is the personification. It's like the metaphor for repressed queer desire. That Jesse doesn't necessarily fear Freddy for Freddy's sake. He fears becoming Freddy, right? It's like, oh, if I'm not careful, I'll be Freddy. And if that is the metaphor for gayness, if that's what he's afraid of, then isn't this movie using Freddy, who is a nightmarish creature, a symbol of bad, actually saying, hey, gayness is bad? Is that a transitive property we're allowed to make?
I think that's fair. And then, sometimes with these films, we often have people, again, at various times who go like, oh, that's really saying some things, everybody. Do we really need to keep liking this? Or, should we find some new things? But I think that the identification with the monster, which happens to a lot of straight people are right. Like I'm more interested in Frankenstein's monster than whoever, right? But I think that has become a really key part of the fun of it. Of like, yeah, like you tell me that I'm bad for being who I am, and so if you tell me that I'm like Freddy Krueger, if I'm like Captain Hook or Ursula or whatever, like those become the heroes, of queer culture, right?
But the movie does, along what Pete was saying, it chickens out.
Yeah.
I mean, he defeats his inner Freddy.
Yeah.
He goes to the girl like he does. There's a self-hatred in the movie if it is supposed to be queer, or not self-hatred, but just talking about the war that can be within someone.
That's my axe to grind with most Freddy Krueger move, and so I'm gonna have some backhanded praise for this, like the epilogues at the end of Freddy Krueger movies where they have one more nice scene that turns out to be a dream.
Right.
Like I love that, but I don't know why we need to always like pretend to kill Freddy. Like, why can't we just have like a sad, like the Freddy wins? Like we all know it's going to happen eventually. Yeah. Like just let Freddy win. like why can't we let that be the ending? So that's my axe to grind with any
that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, the fact that he ends up on the bus again, and it sort of, is on the bus the Nightmare on Elm Street aphorism, or Nightmare on Elm Street like coded language for in the closet, like, oh, he's back on the bus.
He's back on the bus. Yeah. Yeah, he's being a lot of
back on the bus. That classic gay aphorism.
No, but a lot of
that
my
mountain kind of looks like a penis.
Oh my god!
Where it's like teetering. If Freud directs a movie.
But most of my contact with young people is in college, so this generation talks a lot about not just queer kids, but like they talk a lot about normies, which is like this internet term for like like square society. They call them normies, right? Normcore, exactly. Like, and it's like let's cosplay as normal people. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of that, of like anything suburban and typical and any of that stuff is seen as kind of gross and dirty and regressive, and Freddy Krueger as a cure for all of that is part of the fun of the movie, I think.
And it gives us Final Boy. Yeah. That is that I just want to say that out loud. This is, Tom already said Jesse, but we get a Final Boy, and that's it's written on the tin, you guys. Coded queer Final Boy.
And that might have been it. I mean, so if they're just trying to do a slasher film with a boy, right? Like, I think that's the trouble when you're playing with some of these tropes that are, just feminist in their nature, right? Like the final girl trope is feminist, and then let's just do it with a boy, and then see, and then let's forget about actually adapting it for a boy, and then you end up potentially with like a gay movie, right? Like
you're feminizing the character through ignorance.
If you're just doing the exact same beats as that, then is it just a gay character, right? I mean, so it'd be like doing a white Get Out or something, and just like not actually adapting it, right? You're going to get up something else. You're not going to end up with just a white Get Out, right? But there is all
Like
this,
the opposite of Alien, how Alien Ripley was originally a guy.
right?
And then
Yeah,
was changed, and so she, other than the underwear scenes, she is incredibly non-feminine.
right. Yeah,
Except for the
exactly.
second movie, which gets super into motherhood. But okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Right. hmm Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be doing an alien movie with the male main character. Like, if you're not actually thinking about what that means, then you might just lose what makes Alien so great, or what have you. Yeah, yeah. But no matter what people say, like there are there's a lot of like way more than normal, I think, even for an 80s movie, of like Jesse being shirtless and like hanging out shirtless with the bros, them wrestling, bullying each other, sort of, kind of bullying, not kind
Pantsing
of,
him, showing
pantsing each other. Yeah.
very interested in the male body versus the other way around.
Yeah, yeah. And then Freddy,
dance.
Go ahead with the dance. Yeah.
Those jeans, right? Like those, he was getting every bit of those jeans in that dance. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Scream Queen documentary, Jack Shoulder was saying, and I think Mark Patton was backing them up, that basically they had something else written there that Mark Patton didn't want to do, and he's like, well, I could dance. They let him sort of do this, like, okay, whatever this is, and then for a while Mark Patton was like, that's the most embarrassing thing in my life, and then eventually he's like, okay, that's the centerpiece of my entire career. So,
Yeah.
so
Well, I don't need to surprise you all with this.
What was the original draft? Sorry,
No,
Pete, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, this should come as no surprise to anybody, and I'm not making this up. Right
Mhm.
now, Mark Patton is a 66-year-old interior designer.
That's right.
So, there's a guy who just found his stereotype and got on that train all the way into retire. He looks great. Dreamy blue eyes.
Great blue eyes, yeah.
So
Yeah.
damn.
Silver Fox.
But yeah, I mean, the last thing to think about is, like, Robert Englund has, in his interviews, and these are relatively recent interviews, like, said that he knew he read the script, like, this is a gay movie, and
Really?
Let's
that
see
he
what I
should,
can do with this.
yeah, and like for him to be as sexually menacing as he was to Nancy, but now with the boy, and he knew he says he knew what he was doing, and that there were takes where, right, he's caressing Jesse when they first meet, like running his knife hands over his lips, and that he actually, yeah, you got the body, yeah, and that he actually tried to go into Mark Patton's mouth, and Mark Patton didn't want to do that. In the documentary, Mark Patton says that it was the on-set makeup who called cut that Mark was ready, and then pulled him aside and, don't let him do that. Don't let him put those knives in there. Like, you're gonna regret that image later on. So,
Wow.
Our first intimacy coordinator.
right, exactly.
Nice.
Wow.
Wow.
All right, great. So, any last thoughts about the gayest movie of all time, as it's been called, Nightmare on Elm Street 2?
What an interesting anomaly. I think it was Pete that said fantastic mess. It really is.
Mhm.
It's so weird, and everyone is playing a different. And I love the parents are great, and I love the dad because he's in Returning the Living Dead.
Mhm.
Oh, that's the other dad.
Clue
But
Gulager, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
the other dad. Okay, yeah.
The other dad, when he's banging on the door, it's like the Ferris Bueller shot from the end
Right.
of the same
Yeah.
actor, Lyman.
Right.
What's his name? Yeah.
Very fun. It's good to. I would never watch this movie again unless I had a reason to, and I'm so glad that I watched it. Does that make sense? Like, that's why I think I repeat this every single time of, like, I'm so glad that this podcast exists.
Right.
Because I will always pass over this movie for Dream Warriors, but I'm so glad. Yeah.
Just for the music, if nothing else.
Right. Yeah, but to watch the movie as a lark instead of, like, as a serious horror movie, maybe that'll fit back in. Put it on at parties or something.
Oh, I'll see it again. I meant I would never have watched this movie again until this. I didn't say that I'll never watch this movie again. I watch all of these movies nightly.
All right. Well, let's test our theory that we'll rewatch these movies, and this is with the Palme d'Or winning Titane, which is from 2021 by Julia Ducournau. She is only the second woman to win the Palme d'Or, and this is relatively rare for a horror movie. So I think this one deserves
the piano.
The piano, yeah.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Look at you. Trivia times.
Hello.
Yeah. So I think as a relatively recent movie, we should just sort of put up a spoiler wall, I guess, if you're trying to avoid this, because this movie is pretty hard to describe at all, I think, without getting into the heart of it. So this is about a little girl named Alexia who gets in a terrible car crash when she's a young girl and hits her head on the side of her car after like bothering or provoking her father or something.
Mhm.
You know, the movie is very ambiguous, but she has to have a
Kicking the back of the seat.
titanium. Oh yeah, it's taking the back
Yeah.
of the seat. A titanium plate put in the side of her head that she will grow into. The plate will be with her forever. And when she gets the plate put in, she seems to not have a relationship with her parents, but she goes out directly to hug their car, potentially to thank them for what it's done to her, to allow her to be part metal, potentially, maybe.
Hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying I know what's happening in this movie. Years later, we pick up on her, and Alexia is now a model of at a car show. I can't quite tell if the car show is a like long-term gig or whether like it's a short-term gig or what have you, but we know very little about her except that she has at least one night as a car show model where she performs sexy risque dances along with other sexy risque dancers on their respective cars, and hers is an early model or mid-model Cadillac that's all souped up, and then afterwards she is accosted in the parking lot by one of her fans, an autograph seeker, who then forcibly kisses her against her will, and she kills him using her hair spike. And we're not even there yet. All right, so that's only the beginning of Act One. This is still the prologue, and then she goes. She seems to be nonplussed by this, but she is spittled on by the man as he dies, and she goes into the shower at the car show and cleans herself off. And when she is in the shower, she is awakened out of her reverie by a car noise from the showcase floor, where her Cadillac car is the only one that's still there, and it seems to be beckoning to her. And she goes inside of it and has sex with it. All right.
Do go on, Kynan.
I'm 15 minutes into the movie.
Oh yeah. I think
And
that's
also talk slower and faster. I don't exactly know where I am in this, but I'm titillated. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, she's a serial killer, it turns out, and yeah. Actually,
Are you gonna do this for the whole movie?
Should we
We're gonna, we only have
should we
so much time.
still do this
Killed
more? I
before
don't know.
that guy, right?
Yeah.
She's killed before hair spike.
She's killed
guy, right?
before the
Because
hair spike guy.
okay,
yes.
because she sees that news report where
She
someone's
sees the
like,
news
"Hey,
report.
someone's
Yeah,
killed."
exactly.
I just want to
exactly.
Okay.
Well, I guess yada yada yada. She kills a bunch of people, but she messes up for the first time and has to go on the run because she lets somebody survive and they see her. So she lights her parents' house on fire with them inside of it and takes on a new persona as the now newly found missing boy who disappeared 10 years earlier, Adrian, right? And she is adopted by Adrian's grieving father, Vincent, who is a fire captain, a very masculine but aging fire captain. And they develop a surrogate father-son relationship as Vincent and and Adrian. Does that sound right so far?
Yeah. And nothing else happens.
The end.
Oh,
well,
wait.
before we get into it, yes, Axis to Grind about Titane.
Well, maybe. Okay. I'm just going to go first because my axe is explicitly right now with you. Because, Kynan, you said this was coded queer horror. And this is like confrontationally, explicitly queer and completely transgressive. Like what is the code in this movie?
The question is, I think, about whether this is a trans movie or not. And I guess you're saying it is absolutely a trans movie, and there's no question about that. But
interesting.
The character,
that was my read. Yeah,
the character never explicitly says that, and then maybe what you might say about Nightmare 2, where it doesn't follow through on itself, right? Because it's a Palme d'Or winning film, you might say, oh, it's ambiguous, but by the end of it, she seems to reject herself living as the man Adrian and seems to admit that she is a woman who's been pretending to be a man the whole time. But there are audiences who have read the movie as basically, using the horror context to tell a trans story. And other people who have attacked it, it's very transphobic, right? So, readings about this from the queer community are all over the place.
It's really interesting, and I obviously have no place to weigh in on that front, because to me, it's using the explicit and completely natural body horror of pregnancy.
Yeah.
Right. It is a bodily horrific experience.
Right.
And it's doing it as a metaphor for transformation and fluid identity and, queer embodiment. And I, on one hand, I loved this movie.
Yeah.
I just kind of hated watching it.
Yeah, it's a Palme d'Or winner.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah. It's
I have
Elephant.
always
It's
wanted to know.
9/11.
I've always wanted to know what happens if someone actually carries a car to term, and now I know.
Asked and answered.
She tries to terminate the pregnancy, but it is too strong for her. It turns out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another theme that's developing in the movies that you pick.
Yeah.
This seems, and I say this with great respect, this is maybe the most ADHD movie I've ever seen, because it seems like it's just constantly in a manic episode, that it just goes like, okay, she's a killer. Also now she's likes this girl. And now now she's having sex in a car. And now, I mean, it's just constantly like, it doesn't want to ever stay in any one place. So it just jumps the next thing and the next thing and next thing, making it that we're struggling to keep up about what's real, what's not, what's happening, who are you, what's happening, who is this, now you're this person. Yeah, it wasn't Lynchian, but it was just because it was moving so fast, it was hard to really get a grasp on anything. And then suddenly we given birth to a half car, half person, and you go, so that happened. Okay.
Do you know what's interesting? And I'm sorry, I don't want to interject, Tom. You need to talk. But the most squeamish I was in this movie was when Adrian was doing the transformation in the bathroom and trying to break their own nose. I was edge of my seat in that sequence. That was legitimately hard to watch. Everything else was, but I kind of felt that way. And I we'll talk about the director in a bit. But
yeah.
Anyway. Sorry, Tom.
I will not watch your other film, I think. So if you assign that to me, I don't think I'll be able to watch Julia Ducournau's Raw. Yes, the trailer gives me nightmares. I don't know if I'll be.
Yeah, I can't watch eating. That's why I had so much trouble with Bring Her Back. I love talking. Oh wait, that's not what we're
Anyways.
talking about. This movie, I agree with Kyle, and maybe I'll push it a little bit farther. I don't get it. And there's so, to steal Pete's text to me, this movie is filled with ideas.
Yes.
And it is.
Yes.
But to what end? I guess I've never, I've seen Cronenberg's Drive twice.
Yep.
And I don't understand the link between the idea of cars. I'm not a car guy, so I don't find them sexy. I don't find car crashes intimate. I don't understand that idea. What I can hook on to is if I was to try to understand a type of sexuality that I have no personal connection to, would it be as alien as having unexplained sex with a car? That's very interesting to me.
Yes. Yeah,
And
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and I like that. That's really interesting. But then there's this other 2/3 of the movie, which just seems a little haywire. I don't know why we have to make her. I mean, the transphobic thing, it's almost like, why? And maybe I shouldn't even say her. I don't know. I don't think they ever declare it in the movie. Why they make them a serial killer? That's almost like a going back into Basic Instinct days.
Yeah,
Of
exactly.
like, why are we making the other also dangerous and horrible?
Yeah, now we're into sleepaway camp territory.
And now
Right.
we're in Sleepaway Camp and back to Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
creating things out of whole cloth and then throwing torches and pitchforks at them. And it's like, to what end?
Right.
I don't know. I couldn't. The movie is deeply gross. The movie is deeply uncomfortable. The movie is at times kind of sexy, but it's almost punishing me for
Yes.
feeling any of those feelings.
Yes.
The movie just wants to run me over.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate. So, Carol Ballard, who wrote Crash, said that, yeah, he was trying to get at things
J.G.
about
Ballard?
sex. I'm sorry, J.G. Ballard. Carol Ballard wrote the Black Stallion. Those are two very different people. No, wait, are they? Wait,
No,
did the guy who write the Black Stallion write Crash?
So many
Okay, anyways.
J.G. Ballard. Go ahead.
Okay, anyway, sorry about that. But he said that the point of Crash was like, in order for us to put, our gaze upon sex, the only real way to do it is to make it unsexy, right? Is to pick something that no one in the world's attracted to cars, right? So that's how you can start to see, like, what do people look like when they're having sex with a car, right? Because otherwise you'd be like, oh, someone might be but Julia Ducournau, the director of Titane, had a similar thing where she says that she hoped that she was making in Alexia a character that no one would have any sympathy for, which is usually the opposite of what you try to do in a movie or like your stated purpose, right? So to make her a serial killer, to put her into a situation where she's having sex in a way that none of us can identify with, to potentially having a sexuality and a gender identity that none of us have, right? So I don't know that I could see people like
To
you
what
potentially like
end?
saying like to what
Yeah.
end, right?
Yeah.
To what end? But I find it very fascinating to watch her. You get to live in the world of this character, but kind of be outside of it at the same time, right? Like you're both very, because it's shot very much like world cinema, like the camera's tight on her, we're following her, she's walking through
Right.
these spaces, etc. But at the same time, you're very removed from her, and you're able to see her like as an idea, which again isn't what we try to do in most movies, and I think it really works here, though.
Huh. It did remind me, some of the techniques reminded me of two movies. I don't necessarily care for either of them, but I respect both of them.
Mhm.
In a Violent Nature, which
Uh-huh.
just came out somewhat recently, which is like it's like, what if the movie just followed Jason the entire time?
Right. Yeah.
And there's no character development. And most of it is just like a walk through the woods. The other one was Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
you are invited along, but not in.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting, but for me, there's not a lot to hang on to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I feel like the movie is just sort of like screaming at me. and then after a while, the screams stop. And I go on with my life. I don't know.
Suddenly the screaming stops.
Yeah, I don't mean to sound like a prude or an anti-intellectual about movies like this. I just don't know what I have to connect to.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had that too, because I was like watching her doing the dance on the car, or whatever, too. And it's like, I know another thing with the youth. I don't want to kink shame, but it's always interesting to watch something that's not your kink and go, that's what does it for you, huh? Okay. I just like felt very removed of like, huh. Okay, it's the whole movie. It was
the
like
dance at the car show, or on top
at the
of
beginning.
the car show. Yeah, at the
or
very
not
beginning.
the fire engine dance where
No,
everybody.
yeah, turns into it. Yeah. Then everyone joins the audience going, oh.
Yeah, but that's an interesting scene, I think, Tommy, that you're talking about. So she ends up, being this Adrian character and being adopted by the firehouse, and just when they seem like, hey, we're accepting you, and they're having this big bacchanal, I think because one of their colleagues got blown up, and they're like living through this like hey, like very masculine, like let's do a rave, essentially, like a Viking sort of like celebration of all that, and they're like, Adrian, you go now, and she reverts back to her old self, and it's this really interesting like thing, like, hey, be one of the boys, we accept you for who you are, and then she ends up reverting to her previous gender, and it really, really bothers them, right? It's a very uncomfortable thing. You're seeing the exact same actor perform the exact same dance, but now you're like, ew. why does it gross us out? Yeah.
And isn't that the message, that gender in this case is strictly performative?
Performance,
right? Like that we have them doing the same dance, one at the car, doing the same dance at the car, and then doing it in the sort of in the guise of after the transgressive switch,
right. Mm-hmm.
And
both very masculine spaces.
Very
masculine spaces, which I think is really like, that is an interesting thing to me. I also think the movie has a little bit, it actually has a deceptive amount of heart, that this is a person who is lost, but part of the ideology of the movie is that family is chosen, not given.
Their relationship with Vincent is breathtaking. It's
Is
probably
really
the best part of the movie.
Yes. That, I mean, like when I look for, this is a bonkers movie, and yet there's that character of Vincent that I felt like I connected with. Like that is a dad who is struggling to understand and is doing the work. And I think that's really cool and motivated by love, right?
Yeah. May I may I undercut that?
Oh, okay, all right.
Because I have rarely done as much research for a show that I wasn't like the main driving force of. Because I watched this and I was like, what does he want us to get out of this? So I had to read a bunch of like tell me what I just saw as a two. And one of the reads of this movie is that Vincent had killed his son and had set him on fire.
Jesus, no.
That's the visions he sees, and that is why he's like, nope, that is absolutely my son, and no one should look any farther into anything else.
No,
I will not.
Vincent lights himself on fire for fun, not his son.
I have read a whole thing saying like that's why, and also because he's so consumed with guilt, and when so shows up, he's like, oh, good, now I can really actually be a father, as opposed to the other one who, I guess there's a picture of his son in a dress. And they thought maybe that he killed his son because he wasn't
for being gender non-conforming, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I like that. That's interesting.
I don't care.
That's not how I'm going. That's
That
not how I'm going to read it.
That second part is interesting.
That's very interesting.
For me to not push back, but to again sort of grind my axe a little bit more. Pete, I love the idea of does the exact same dance, but now it's a boy, and isn't that crazy? But it's a child. So the movie is still stacking too much up. If it was just an adult woman doing a dance and then you see an adult man do a dance and you're like, oh, see how it changes? But it's a missing, damaged child. And so the movie is just stacking too much up on top of itself for me to be like, that's what it's about. I like it. That's interesting. Instead, it's like, well, which part of this movie do you want me to deal with? It's
because in the beginning she was an adult woman. Right.
Yeah.
That's what. Right.
But she's pretending to be a child. She's pretending to be a room of people that have accepted kind of her or they as a child, and so there's an extra added grossness to it, which I think detracts from the interesting potential not queer coded, but the potential talk about what's going on there, because there's so much going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, but I do like this Vincent character. Pete texted us and was like, Jiminy Christmas, Titane is not even in the orbit of the movie I expected, which is true. Like I'd heard about the car sex stuff, and I thought this movie was going to be about car sex, and it turns out at its heart it is about a father and son finding each other, which is not where I thought I was going to spend my Sunday night as I was watching it. Yeah, but it's gender as performance with this like masculine fire captain who is starting to feel himself no longer being as masculine, and he's shooting up in private, and then potentially in finding, if Alexia is a trans boy named Adrian or what have you, like potentially finding someone who in going through the transition understands his transition into becoming less masculine and, is willing to like see him like see that he needs steroids or see that he needs testosterone, whatever he happens to be injecting into himself, and like we'll be there for him to help him with that and whatever he needs. Like that's really kind of crazily heartfelt.
I didn't make some of those connections. That makes the film, if anything, if you had to boil it down to one thing, it's identity. It's just identity and all of the identity shame, but just all the ways that identity is important and the desperate lengths that you'll go to maintain them or find them out of whole cloth.
What's interesting about that, Tom, is that I get the ideology that identity is not a destination, right? This is a movie where fluidity is paramount. And yet part of this movie says that identity is a mutation, right? Like the change that she got when she starts lactating motor oil, right? That's an expression of identity that is outside of expected transitional experiences, right? Like that's not a thing that we
maybe it's supposed to make it as alien as possible in order to put yourself in the mind frame of someone that you cannot understand because your biology, your whatever orientation, whatever, isn't built that way.
Right.
And so it's as crazy as having sex with a car to you. But in this situation, it is, I mean, it creates life for her.
Yeah. And the gender, like gender is not who you are, but what you're able to survive. And because the worldview of this movie is generally negative, she does not.
Right. Yeah. She loses herself by popping out the metal plate that she got as a girl. And like that, apparently, you know, this movie's a fable, so I don't, you know, like it's not maybe we should be thinking about this literally, but like, you know, she in giving birth to this baby, like it pops out of her head and she's not who she has been, you know, for her whole second act of her life has been this woman with the metal plate in her head, and when she can't be that anymore, she has nothing else and she passes away gently. And you know, so it's a really recent movie, and because it's a Palme d'Or winner, like people are gonna be writing like a lot about this movie. So I wouldn't
pieces.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like in 10 years, like we'll come back to this and there'll be like a whole body of work about this that we're just barely even scratching the surface.
Well, it's going to be a Fire Walk with Me situation.
Yeah, maybe. Or Bride of Frankenstein, right? I mean, that was not a movie that people particularly cared to think about, you know, in 1935. And now, you know, yeah, people talk about it all the time. Yeah.
And that there's probably, just you bringing that up. I mean, how does she kill people? Not with knives. She is penetrating people. She is penetrating people constantly with these. Yeah. I when I said I didn't get it, I didn't say I don't get it and therefore I'm mad at it. I just didn't get it. I don't think I'm there for it yet.
Yeah, let me in. Yeah.
It's beautifully made, weirdly acted, and I'm interested in it existing.
Right. And it is ambiguous enough that now that I've seen it, it is interesting. Now it makes sense where I see these think pieces on both sides of people going like, yeah, this is a trans movie of all trans movies. Other people saying, no, it's not. It's just about a serial killer. And other people saying it's transphobic and regressive. Like I see how that's there at all directions. Like, because there is the trope that people in the trans community have been fighting back against, right? Of like, we have someone who quote unquote changes genders as a disguise because they're really a serial killer, which is obviously like what a lot of the anti-trans talking points are about, right? That they're not really that gender, they're just performing in that way to get what they want or what have you, right? Now that's an interesting, I think, valid take on it. But there's potentially also, you know, this character accidentally discovering their gender identity because they do seem to become more whole and complete in some ways while their body's falling apart, their soul is being healed, yada yada yada, etc. And you know, he stops killing people. Right, so after the transition, there is no more killing. They're not a villain anymore, and we see them like thinking about killing the father, etc. Yeah, but that goes away. Like they were an injured, weak person before, and then potentially accidentally have found themselves. But yeah.
Oh, damn it. I'm going to have to watch this movie again. It's so gross.
All right. Right after this, put it right on again.
It's so gross. Okay,
right.
Good.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like Kyle was saying, it's not Lynchian, because with a Lynch film, I would put it on right afterwards again and go do that again.
Because it's a tone poem. This is just
not
so
Titane. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And as I'm just looking at the little summary on Wikipedia to help me as we were doing this, we did forget to mention that after that party where they all shun Adrian for doing the dance on top of the fire engine, Adrian has sex with the fire engine.
I was actually wondering if that was going to come up. Like,
I guess we tried not to mention it, but then just realizing what we left out.
and let's just say both the caddy and the fire engine were down to clown with Adrian.
That's right.
In for it.
And she was a first responder. Not even a joke. Just worried.
Yeah. But the summary says has sex with a fire engine, and so then my question is it the same fire engine that he danced on top of? You know, because that's what happens with the caddy, is he dances on top of the caddy and then has sex with it. So does he have magical dancing powers that turn the cars into sex machines. I don't know. It might be
that's
a
actually
magical.
interesting.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
the same fire engine. I don't know how to identify fire engines by looking at them. So
That's so funny.
Kynan, we expect you to do your research, Professor.
I'm not going to rewatch this movie anytime soon.
Yeah, I hear you.
Even clips of it.
And I think it's as we close out our thing before you wrap up. I think it is important to mention that there is an implied car sex scene in the Dukes of Hazzard movie. So
I believe it bounced up onto her
That's
undercarriage,
yes.
right?
As he's cleaning the car,
Yeah.
then the General Lee pops the gas tank open as if like, huh?
Oh my
And
god.
Ew.
then Sean William Scott moves sexually over towards it.
But
Oh,
that's the only way
God.
Sean William Scott can move. Is
That's
sexually.
accurate.
Yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
sexually.
Yeah, I saw the rundown. I know.
All right. Well, gents, what did you think of our Pride Month salute to Coded Queer Cinema? Any last thoughts here?
Outstanding choices that were very off of the beaten path.
Oh, good.
Which in all of the best ways. So thank you so much. These were 3 movies that were not on anyone's list, and I'm so glad that they were put on our list. Like, I really enjoyed them, and remembering to continually look, I'm repeating myself, but continually look, especially at horror film, in different ways, signs within signs, reactions, societal talking to itself in different ways, not just, communism, ha! Or like, we're scared of nuclear weapons, so huge lizard. There's a lot of dialogue going through these horror movies, so I'm very, very appreciative. Thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
I thought it was revelatory. I had no idea sort of the subtext of any of these things. It's sort of would have just read straight on than to sort of like look at it as a piece. Like that was the 3 of them as telling one thing was really, really interesting.
Oh, fantastic. If I could make a recommendation to you, you all probably know that the Babadook is a queer icon.
Talked about it.
Yes.
I
Yes,
did it. I
yes.
talked about it on a episode of Make Me a Nerd with Mandy Kaplan, friend of the show. Mandy
Yeah.
Kaplan.
I think it is quite something else when you actually take that joke seriously and rewatch the Babadook as a queer movie. It's there if you want it to be. Is the
Yeah.
point? It's just a joke. It just Netflix decided that movie is coded queer
Netflix
cinema.
accidentally put it under Pride things, and then
Pride
just
Month.
took, and then people were like, "He
Yeah.
does live in kind
Actually.
of a closet."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems very interested in that kid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now he's locked in a basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We feed him worms. I guess that's the
Oh.
thing. I don't know.
So
Yeah.
good.
All right. So let's hear what Mr. Olson has going for us.
Oh my
next
goodness.
month. Kyle.
Okay. All right. Yes, I'm up next. So I've been interested. There's been a lot of talking about the public domain characters and remakes and all that stuff. So I thought I wanted to take a character who has been portrayed many times and then sort of take a slice out of it. So I'm going to and we're going to talk about a popular horror character and then talk about a version of their story from the 90s, the 2000s, and then the 2000
fun.
teens or whatever
Okay.
too. So we are going to talk about Vlad Tepes himself, Dracula. We're going to start with Bram Stoker's Dracula
Great.
Ah.
from 1992, Dracula 2000,
Wait, what's that?
and Dracula Untold.
What?
It's so untold. Tommy
Yes,
hasn't heard of it.
if you guys, none of you have seen Dracula 2000s. I cannot wait for the next episode.
Is it
'Cause
called
it's a take.
Dracula 2000?
Dracula, it's really called Dracula 2000, and it came out in 2000.
Wow.
And it's
Is it
by
like,
Wes Craven.
Wow.
Yeah.
what?
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I
Crazy.
thought you guys would all be like, oh, of course, Dracula 2000.
No.
Oh, this is going to be great.
Dracula 2000.
But yes, I'm
Is it
calling
like
it
Lawnmower
Drac
Man
Pack.
Dracula? Oh, the Drac
Drac
Pack. That's
Pack.
wonderful. I love it. Okay. Did you see Nosferatu?
I did not. I actually, I have, I think further on down the line, I have a thing we're going to do about Nosferatu. If someone
All
listens to it
right.
first,
Okay.
but-
Great.
That's exciting because
That's
again,
very
I'm not
exciting.
a classicist, and so I haven't gone back and watched. I'm a deep lover of at least the first half of Bram Stoker's Dracula, so I'm
Yes.
excited to get back into that. And these other 2 movies, I'm pretty sure you just made up. So I'm fascinated.
Dracula AI.
I'm just excited to find out how gay is Dracula over time. That's all I can think about.
Pretty gay.
Yeah, pretty gay. Well, this has
Dracula-
been outstanding.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell your joke, Tom. Get it out. You're not going to be able to sleep tonight. Go ahead.
Dracula sucks the blood of like a Mazda. I'm trying to make everything into Titane.
You're trying to make it back? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing that Dracula Untold grossed $200 million at the box office, and this is the first any of us are hearing about it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a big deal. Yeah. I can't wait to. It's going to be fun.
Wow. Just a minute. Who was in it? Who was the big? There was a big name.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was a Fast and the Furious star was played Dracula. So
what are you talking about right now?
We'll leave it to.
I'm gonna watch. Screw Titane. I'm gonna go watch Dracula 2000 right now.
Dude. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Dracula 2000. I'm so that's the one of all these. That's the one I'm so excited to see what you guys think of it. Because.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everyone. For hanging out with us right here on this show, learning about Coded Gay Horror. We sure appreciate your time and your attention. Make sure you do all the stuff you do with podcasts that you know and love. If you'd like to help support the show, head over to truestory.fm/join. You can become a member of the Next Real Family Film Podcast and get all kinds of other bonuses. And we sure appreciate it. I don't know if you know this, but the economy is uncertain. And any additional support you could give us, we would take with great glee. So we'd love to have you there. On behalf of Tommy Metz III and Kyle Olson and Professor Kynan Dias, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you next month right here, sitting in the dark.